Mm. Thank you for dying, random guy. I don't know. At least you were older. Shitty way to die though, frozen to death. Hopefully it was like fentanyl related or something. Sad way to die. Orange Crush variation, most likely. You know, one of the 5 strains that make Alaska Thunderfuck in its original conception. No, I'm at Jupiter. I actually guessed the planet right, so at least I have like 4 planets in the celestial system kind of worked out. Mm, tasty. Yeah, I hope I don't get sterilized secretly. That'd suck. All I want is a family. At least it's warm too for the beginning of January. It's a little warm. I'm not gonna lie. Ugh. Nice. That's worth $8.50 for a gram. Let's see how it rides in. Weed different nowadays. Yeah. I mean, the light dilation or light pollution from the city really sucks because we have an amazing view of Scorpio from here. It should be right over there. Should be. It's not because either it's being blocked by high-tech technology in the atmosphere or there's too much light pollution in this big city. And it sucks. Like, I would much rather be doing this with at least the stars to look at to guide my way. But, at least I can nap here and there. And it's warm. It's not negative 20. So, thank you for the space heater. It's very impressive. But, yeah. No stars. I can't even do my moon studies because I could do it, but it's not quite the mirage effect. The mirage effect has a different effect. And I also have to take into account where the mirage is at in the atmosphere because there's a different temperature up there than down here. When I was dissipating Arctic water, through my sunflower stalk, it was right there on the polygonal shape. I call it topological because it's a circle. It's a sunflower stalk, broken. I wrapped some hemp rope around to make a cute triangle. Actually, more oblong, large and elongated. Which is why I would love to get more into trigonometry. Luckily, I covered basic trigonometry while I was in jail before I started calculus. So I at least got to read through it, find out what sin is, cosine, cousin, and I need to work on cotangent and cosecant, which I imagine gets into multiple derivatives or partial derivatives. I need a math teacher. So I really want to, go, oh, because I once went, oh, and started figuring out differentiation. But I'd like to understand the symbolism for what all the, signs mean. You understand the philosophy and what it's supposed to represent and the observation that made that mathematical law. In principle, make things a lot easier to understand. But yeah, magnification using a mirage effect. I have to take into consideration because that's the conditions when I magnified the moon significantly. So I kind of understand that aspect of it. You can kind of watch the moon change shapes and sizes in relation to the sunrise and sunset. Mainly the sunset over there, because unless the moon has an interesting orbit, it's the angling and the amount of light being reflected off of it interacting with the other speeds of light that are going around the planet. So I guess kind of solar winds. But photons, they're not really winds if the photonal bombardment on the lunar surface I observed is accurate. That's about the only thing that's logical that I could think of. And then it's taking into consideration the size of those splashes and the speed, because it's a fluctuating constant, because I assume it's just the photons interacting with the lunar surface at the right angle in order to show it as well, because it was a full moon. The moon was low on the horizon and the sun was at a decent point in setting during the spring orbit location. Really cool though. And we can totally recreate the effect so that other people can kind of understand it. But using the polyhedral form as a light cover is but it looks really cool, I have to say. And it impressed me because it is pretty much the same thing I have to consider when considering each photon hitting the lunar surface and then bouncing off at a specific triangulation area. So I gotta consider that and the way I'm looking at it and how it's interacting off the lunar surface at this observation point. So I got a lot to think of. Without even thinking, I just kind of look at it and compare. But the effects are still there. I can kind of see the angle at which the sun is hitting the lunar surface through my hand. And I would love a telescope, which is really, really funny. So I have a decent idea of how to make one. The only problem is I'm concerned with the speed of light going through the lens and damaging the eye, which is why you got to take into consideration these things when you're using stuff like Leuco sapphires, which I had a plan on because of the rutile incisions in it. But if you're lab synthesizing it, you can do a lot more, artsy stuff with it. But you need that rutile, and then you have to consider how the speed of light interacts with that. So there's a lot in that Witch of Agnesi. Agnesi? Agnesi. It's Greco, so I assume it's like Latin. Yeah, it's a really, really important mathematical form and figure for me right now. Without being at all, just a circle. You make a pulley system out of it too. You can do a lot with it.